YouTube crew, what is going on, and welcome back to another video. Now, given the changing dynamic of Rebirth, which I think is the polite way to put what is currently going on, we have a lot of new players coming to Rebirth with totally different playstyles than we're used to seeing. We're seeing a lot of players stacking, but we're also seeing it, on the other hand, a lot of players that are just sitting in buildings, sitting in corners, waiting for you to show up. So today, we're going to be going over each perk slot, talk about what are the best perks to be running right now, given the current state of Rebirth. We're going to jump in with perk 3 here and then work our way backwards towards perk 1. With perk 3, there's really 3 things that I see a lot of people running. First things first is do not run tune-up. Yes, it reduces the revive time. Not worth it, especially because teammates respawn back in. The first one that I see a lot of players running is Tracker. And in my opinion, Tracker's not really worth it. Reason being is a lot of times everything is actually in front of us. Tracker only works if we're actually chasing somebody. And if we're chasing somebody, there's a good chance that we already tagged them up and we know where they are already. Plus, you know, there's another perk 3 that kind of does a very similar thing, but is more beneficial to us. The next one that we do want to talk about is Amped here. I think Amped is really beneficial for some people. Amped is really beneficial for my snipers. Reason being is you do need that faster weapon swap, because if you miss a shot with that sniper, you need to be able to quickly swap to your secondary and be able to challenge that enemy. You know, in my opinion, Amped is a must if you are running a sniper here. If you are not running a sniper, it's totally up to you. I get why people run it, but for me, I actually love Combat Scout. I think Combat Scout is hands down the best perk 3 for players that are playing aggressive and probably players that struggle a little bit with awareness. For one main reason, not even the fact that you can shoot through walls and you get the little tag. That is beneficial for areas like tents and living quarters and whatnot. Combat Scout is hands down the best, in my opinion, for aggressive players because of the live ping component. It is so underrated how beneficial this is, because of the fact that you get a sense of where they're moving to. When you tag them up, right, you know if they're going to re-challenge. You see that live ping if they're going to re-challenge, which immediately gives away their plan of action. The biggest thing with the re-challenge when I talk about it is the element of surprise. You're going to break the line of sight, then you're going to re-challenge as they're getting closer so that you can create that window of opportunity to get the down and thirst. But with Combat Scout, you completely lose that ability because the enemy knows exactly what, or you know exactly what the enemy is going to do. The other benefit is similar to Tracker, right? If you tag them up a little bit, you get that live ping, you understand exactly where they are rotating to and can kind of flank them and meet them a certain way because you know which way they're rotating. So in my opinion, for perk 3, Combat Scout is the best option to go with unless you are a sniper, at which point you have to be running Amped. Now for perk 2, we have a lot of different options here. We kind of have 5 different things. But I want to start by talking about something that is super important with Rebirth that differs from Caldera, and it is crucial when it comes to perk 2. You should never be grabbing a second loadout. If you have loadout guns and your perks, you do not want to then go grab the second loadout. Keep that up in case you die so you can fly back in and grab loadout guns and perks again. And how does that apply to perk 2? Well, that means that if you're not going overkill, that you have to have a pretty good floor loot gun. Yes, we have the well gun on the ground and the Owen gun that are really viable, but we want to think about, is the trade-off of using those guns worth it for the perks? Now, let's quickly talk about two of the perks that I would not run at all. First one is Ghost. Again, going back to kind of what I said about never grabbing that second loadout. On Caldera, you grab Overkill, then you grab Ghost. But we don't really need to grab Ghost on Rebirth. If you didn't know this, super helpful tip for you. When you get the mini-map pings, right? When you get a down and you get a thirst, ghosted players pop up. Now, if you're not ghosted, you pop up as a red dot with an arrow above or below or no arrow at all, depending on the level. But ghosted players still pulse on the mini-map, so a good player understands how to clear different areas and is going to still be able to find you even if you're ghosted. No, you don't pop up on Heartbeat, but your teammates probably do, and at the end of the day, as soon as that person gets a down and a thirst, you're now going to be given away that you're ghosted, and that player is going to know exactly where you are. So Ghost, in my opinion, not worth it in Rebirth. Next up is High Alert. Yes, I get the benefit of High Alert. First things first, footsteps from players using Dead Silence. Dead Silence is less of an issue now than it was before. So, you know, if we're running High Alert for that reason, we're really not limiting something that occurs very often. But your vision does pulse when enemies outside of your view see you. In my opinion here, look, it's beneficial, it helps, but we want to constantly be using information, looking for information on heartbeat sensors. We want to be keeping everything in front of us, and we want to be playing quick. Given the close quarters of Rebirth, high alert isn't necessarily worth it compared to Caldera, where you are so out in the open, there's not a lot of cover anywhere. You know, on Rebirth, if somebody shoots us in the back, we can quickly get behind cover, and now we know that person's there. We don't need the vision pulse to tell us. We want to constantly be scanning, understanding where people are. So in my opinion, high alert on Rebirth, not totally worth it. Now, the three that I do think you can make an argument for. The obvious one here is going to be overkill, right? We want to just grab our 2 loadout guns and we're good to go. We got perks, we got our lethal tactical, and we are off and running overkill as long as possible. And if you die, you come back in, you know, you do grab overkill again. Or, by the way, just something to think about here, you know, if you can grab your loadout guns, but you lose your perks because you die, now you can hit that second loadout and grab something else, which is where I think these next two come into play, which are going to be tempered and restock. Tempered, in my opinion, great perk 2 for players that are looking to play aggressive. And I'm going to be doing a video on this very soon, talking about how we can use floor loot guns to our advantage. Look, the legendary well gun, the epic well gun are pretty good guns to be using, as well as the Owen gun. If those are guns that you feel comfortable with, and you do happen to want to go tempered, play a little bit more aggressive, insert only 2 plates instead of 3, really allows you to get back into fights quicker, especially when 1v2ing, 1v3ing, and 1v4ing, specifically the last two, 1v3 and 1v4, because it allows you to get it down, get a thirst, you take some damage, you quickly played up, you're able to get back into that fight before worrying about enemies flying back in and third partying. It allows fights to happen much quicker because you can get back in them quicker. So tempered is a great option here. You just got to keep in mind that you have to be able to execute with floor loot epic and legendary guns, specifically the well gun or the Owen gun. I would never recommend that you go with a floor loot primary. There's some great options, the STG and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I always feel that your primary that you build is going to be better than the floor loot primaries that you grab. Whereas the secondaries, we can at least get away with some of them, like, again, the well gun and the Owen gun. Now, restock. I'm a little bit torn on restock. I like the benefits of it. The fact that, you know, you recharge equipment, specifically your tactical more than anything. The only people that I would actually recommend restock for are people that run stuns and flashes. Right now, there's a ton of stims all around the map. There's a ton of munitions boxes around the map that we're constantly being able to use, restock our stims. And at the end of the day, if you're an aggressive player, you're probably running throwing knives, which you don't necessarily need to be running restock for. We don't need to be constantly running restock. And if you're running semtex or frag grenades or something like that, go ahead and use restock so you kind of are constantly replenished with those as well as your tactical. But at the end, for me, I don't think restock is totally worth it given the amount of munitions boxes and the amount of stims that we're seeing. And of course, if you run a heartbeat sensor, you definitely don't need to run restock. So if you're running, heartbeat sensor, take a look at tempered, take a look at overkill. Those are kind of the 3 main ones that I'm going to take a look at, is restock, tempered, and overkill. Always leaning towards running overkill first, just because I want the main primary and secondary. Now, in terms of our perk 1 here, there's a few different options that we have, and I actually recently changed my perk 1. I finally changed my perk 1 from what I was running to kind of what I feel much more comfortable and beneficial now. In terms of double time, not worth it on Rebirth. Super close quarters, you never want to be caught in attack sprint, and because of the close quarters, there's very few situations where we need to extended sprint. I always talk about sliding around corners so that we can anticipate enemies, and then we can reset our attack sprint that way, especially in buildings like prison, living quarters. We don't necessarily always need to be doubling the duration of our attack sprint, whereas on Caldera, you kind of do, because you're so out in the open. There's less cover in Caldera, and that's really how we're looking at the different maps lead to different perks. So double time, not worth it in my opinion. All it really does for you is mean you have to slide cancel a little bit less in the few situations that it's actually beneficial. The other one that I want to talk about kind of not using is cold-blooded. There's not a lot of people running thermal scopes, whereas on Caldera, there's a lot of people running thermal scopes right now. So on Rebirth, not a lot of people running thermal scopes, so kind of the main benefit of cold-blooded is that it also does not trigger the high alert warning, which again, I don't think a ton of people are running high alert, and at that point, it is what it is. That's a situation where, you're still in a position to get a kill if you're triggering that high alert warning. And then it negates Combat Scout. Look, negating Combat Scout is a benefit, but I'm not seeing a ton of people running Combat Scout right now on Rebirth, which they may be after this video, but I'm not seeing a ton of people running Combat Scout, and at that point, again, you know where that person is. You just got to be smart about re-challenging and handling those situations. So then we have EOD and Quick Fix. EOD, again, is, reduces damage from non-kill streaks, explosives, and fire. I think a lot of people are running throwing knives right now. They're not running Semtex and frag grenades, plus incendiary rounds were just nerfed. So at the end of the day, I am seeing less and less use for EOD here. Yes, you might get direct impacted RPG'd and go down, or you might die to an RPG or a launcher or something from somebody just sitting in a building. But let's be honest, if you get launchered and you are half health, there's a good chance you're probably gonna die anyway, right? There's a good chance that that person's teammate's somewhere close by in another corner, and you're probably gonna die anyway. And again, as I said, I think there's been one time in the past like month or so where somebody double naded me and I died. It just, EOD was not totally, you know, being beneficial for me in a lot of situations, especially being an aggressive player, which is why I actually switched to Quick Fix. Now, let me quickly address why I was so harsh on Quick Fix for so long. The reason is, at the end of the day, Quick Fix only applies if you are completely broken and your base health of 100 is starting to go down. The large majority of your health is actually going to be in your plates. So Quick Fix really only applied if you downed, thirsted a player and were half health and had to regen that health. But when I start taking a look at the other options for Perk 1, I'm not really seeing anything that's as beneficial, you know, when I'm putting myself in 1v2, 1v3, and 1v4 situations. Going in a 50-50, especially against sweaty players, where there's a good chance that I'm going to be broken, and the fact that I might now be low health allows me to regen my health quicker, especially since a lot of players are stacking right now. You know, you're in a 1v3 situation, you get it down, you get a thirst, you're half health, but that immediately starts regenning, allows you to finally get around a corner because that teammate's very close by and about to shoot you in the back. Allows you to get around that corner, you played up, now you're back in the fight. So I've actually been running Quick Fix just because the amount of situations where I think Quick Fix will be beneficial is a little bit more than EOD right now, given the fact that so many people are running throwing knives. And the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, if you get launchered, you're probably dead already. So my perks right now are easily going to be Quick Fix, I'm running Overkill, and I'm running Combat Scout. Those three right there, no questions asked, unless I am running a Sniper, at which my perk 3 is going to be switched to Amp. So I hope you found today's video helpful. Try out these perks right here. Keep in mind everything that I said about not choosing a second loadout, not using that second loadout, keeping that loadout up, especially when it comes to perk 2. Let's get better today, and I will see you tomorrow.